Good evening and a very warm welcome to our first NTU Rap Live event. It's a real pleasure to have you here with us this evening for our event with Derek Owusu. Thank you very much for joining us. My name's Becky Cullen. I'm an English lecturer, a poet and the rap programme manager. And most importantly, I'm your host for the evening. My job is to let you know what's going on, what's coming up, and when it's time to put the kettle on, which should be around 8:15. So we told the National Grid to expect a surge in Beeston and Sherwood in particular. Before we kick off then, a couple of things. This event is hosted by Nottingham Trent University curated and created programme as part of its writing, reading and pleasure project RAP. Since October, RAP has delivered over 30 hours of reading and writing workshops and events for students, supporting them in developing their creativity and making use of writing and reading to bring people together in these extraordinary times. It's been a real pleasure to see our NTU community of writers and readers come together. We've invited in writers from our Nottingham City of Literature community, hosting Panya Banjoko, poet, PhD student and curator of Nottingham Black Archive, NTU Creative Writing MA graduate Ikra Kataria, who came and shared her poems and her novel in progress with us, and poet Leanne Moden joined a virtual table at our virtual cafe, bringing her wonderful poem friends with her. If you're a student and you want to find out more, take a look at the Virtual Arts Centre on MS Teams, where you can find all our RAP events, as well as finding out what's happening with music at Bonington Gallery and at Metronome. Our RAP featured writer this term is the award-winning Derek Owusu, writer of Safe and That Reminds Me, and host of the Mostly Lit podcast. Derek came to our attention through his reading at the Nottingham UNESCO City of Literature My Voice competition celebration. And when we got our hands on That Reminds Me, we knew it would be a book to help start a dialogue about the issues students told us are important to them. Race, gender, mental health, masculinity, religion, coming of age, if you like, in the same way as Kay in Derek's book. With the support of NTU's Success for All programme, we've responded to requests for over 400 copies of That Reminds Me in our great That Reminds Me book giveaway. Okay, so that's who we are, what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's time to move on to why we're here this evening, the marvellous Derek Owusu. So in the first part of the evening, we're talking about Derek's book, That Reminds Me. And I should mention that the conversation about the book picks up on themes of mental health, self-harm and suicide. In the second part of the evening, we're focusing on writing and reading and what it means to have a passion for writing and reading. There'll be a 5-minute comfort break at about 8:15. And the evening includes Derek's reading. A fantastic poet is giving us a set, Ioni Smallhorn, and we've also got a set from a rap writer and ambassador, Justina, who just started writing in October, and she's sharing her work with us. So there's a chance as well to get your questions to Derek, stick them in the chat, and we'll get the curated and created Christmas elves on the job. So here we go. This is the big build up now, Derek. I can see Derek on my screen waiting patiently. Right, we're about to go live. So joining us this evening is Derek Owusu, award-winning poet, writer and podcaster. Derek's book of essays, Safe, gives us an opportunity to listen to the lived experiences of prominent Black British male poets, writers, musicians and journalists. His novel, That Reminds Me, won the Desmond Elliott Prize after being picked up and published by Stormzy's Murky Books, and it's been described as extraordinary, unique and honest. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Derek Owusu. And the crowd goes wild. Woo! Hi, Derek. How are you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Yeah, good. This is a very odd experience, isn't it? We can see ourselves on this screen more than once, but that's okay. That's okay. Have you had your tea? Can I ask you that for a start?
I have had my tea. Yeah, I had a nice chicken sandwich in brioche, chicken brioche bun
So
thingy.
posh. I had fish fingers. So, we're thinking along the same lines. Fish fingers, posh fish fingers sandwich. So that's very good. Okay. So we're going to have a chat then about That Reminds Me to start off with. And I thought it'd be useful if you could just say a little bit and introduce our viewers to a little bit about the book and what it's about.
Sure. So it's as you say, a coming of age novel in verse. It's been called a poetry collection. It's been called a memoir, though that is incorrect. It's definitely not a memoir.
Okay.
And it's about a young Ghanaian boy called Kay, who is in foster care, comes out of foster care at the age of 7, goes back to his birth family who live in Tottenham, North London. Obviously, his foster carers, who were a white middle class family, lived in a place called Long Melford in Suffolk.
Okay.
And it's literally just a kind of, it's about the push and pull of culture. It's about the effects that foster care can have on the mental health of a young person. It's about borderline personality disorder specifically, because that is a disorder that affects, young people who are put into foster care. In later life, they tend to develop that. Mm-hmm. And it's family. It's about love. It's about, so many things that I guess it's just about all of the things that we experience in life. And I wrote it in a way that it was fragments of memories. So it's Kay recollecting moments that have happened to him in the way that we remember things in first person, in third person, in memories that are not ours, that somebody's given us after they've told us a story, and suddenly we remember it like it happened to us. Scattered memories, things that may not make sense, or just little things, those moments where you say, why do I remember that? It's irrelevant. Why is relevant to your life story? Because otherwise it wouldn't be there. So that was that, and I did write it. It is semi-autobiographical. I did write it to try and get a sense of myself and the place that I was at. I wrote this after I, had a serious mental breakdown. And that's what it was about. All writers say I didn't write this for anybody. I wrote this for me. I feel like I can say that more honestly than most writers,
okay.
Because where I was at when I actually wrote it. But yeah, that is the book.
Thank you very much. You told us a little bit about the style and the content and the themes and what it's based on and where it came from, which is fantastic. So we've got a feel for what kind of creature it is. But I wondered if you would mind reading from the book to give us a taste of it, to start us off in the conversation, please.
Sure, of course.
Which bit are you reading? Which bit are you again going to share with us?
So I'm going to read from part 2, which is reflection.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And in this part, Kay is literally just remembering his mother, how he remembers her. The flat speaks its night noises, and she responds with her own absent-minded murmurings. The kettle bubbles and the rising boil sounds and brings to mind the waters of Accra, Ghana, a memory of something she never experienced. When will she go back and stand before the tide she imagined as a child? Waters that ignore boundaries and smother sands that eventually lead back to skyscrapers, distant from her and imagined. The Ghanaian garden city of Kumasi, too traditional for a young mind tuned to Western standards of living. The tea is too hot, but she's acclimatized, feeling only a familiar sensation, forgetting to register it as pain. It's 4:30. The bus comes in 2 minutes, but she'd rather be late than risk toppling over. No one would help her up in the morning mist or the light of her own home. The school in which she works is quiet. You'd never know children ran up and down these corridors, so attentive is she to the floor, like wiping food from her child's face, showing it a gentleness she's always given but never received. Gospel hums in her throat, the words never coming for fear a teacher might pass and think her unfit for work. It's been 20 years and she's weary. the early morning wind feeling like a breeze visiting the edge of a cliff. Her humming is in sync with her thoughts. Cleaning shit from a toilet transforms into arms raised to the sky, praying at the feet of an almighty God. Through everything, there sits her savior. She's finished by 7:30, and as she walks out the building, a teacher says, "Hello, on your way?" She smiles. No words. Her gentle hum is enough to think all is okay. The first friend I allowed in my house ran back to tell our class I was poor. They saw my mum and dad's mattress lying on the uncarpeted floor, homeless, unsupported, the framework having fallen apart, with sheets seeming to drag along like a dropped flag gliding through an ocean of scattered clothes. When we bickered in school, my living conditions were his weapons of choice. Although the house didn't smell of spice, curry powder or Maggie, the white boys of the area instead mocked the visible tinge of black that stained the bottom of our inner curtains. They were there when we moved in, and I suspect it was this unwillingness to change them, maintained by financial difficulties, that led the old woman from 5 doors down to knock at ours and inquire about her friend. In our garden, we had a bomb shelter, fascinating to me, but really a reminder of how soon the house might crumble. Suitcases longing for their promised flight to Ghana waited patiently next to little bags full of sardines that kept guests company in our living room, distracting them from the black mold that gathered in the corners of our ceiling. Still, nobody left our home without a story of relative poverty to relay. The truth is, we were all black and working class, but pretending we couldn't relate. My dark skin saved my dad from child services, but no one saved me. My mum's eyes were always elsewhere, too out of reach to pull me into something akin to sympathy. Her eyes were dry as they fell to the floor, fingers down a neglected window, down my childhood photos. The ones taken by door-to-door photographers, a blue background I now see as the sea I could mercifully push my younger self into. Connecting slaps like feints and jabs worked up his confidence, more coming as if encouraged by an imagined applause. Confusion had left me, leaving only lies I'll tell myself about who I was. I must be a bad boy. I must deserve it. I must have done something wrong. The knocks on my head a farmer's premonition. My dad, he walked with his head low, hands in pockets, not even seeing the pavement, and I wondered what he thought about, aside from the punitive ways to communicate with me. One evening I followed him out, with my head still in the itchy state of pain that followed his knuckles. As I walked and watched, stepping on the long shadow he cast, I thought he'd stroll out into the road, so unseeing he looked, so uncaring. Trees behind houses swayed with the wind, like giants in the darkness peeking round homes to see if he was okay. I felt sympathy. I watched him cross the road and enter the shop, but ran home when I saw him making his way back. Walking into the living room, he looked down at me, my peripherals filled with his presence. I kept my focus on the screen, on Keenan, Kel, and Coolio. He threw something into my lap as the last nick of the show's theme tune echoed out. A bar of chocolate, a peace offering on manipulation disguised as guilt. I began to eat it, broke off a piece and offered it to him, but he spat back. I brought it for you, and make sure you eat it all.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you. That's really interesting because I was going to start off asking you about the men in this book, and the way that I think it's really interesting watching all the different influences on Kay as he comes of age, as he moves himself from this idea of, from being a boy to being a man, and all the different males there are in the text that give us these kind of multifaceted views of masculinity, if you like. So there's a father figure and his male friends and older boys and the griot on the estate. So I was just wondering what you felt about the kind of masculinity that you might be creating here. Were you playing with that on? Were you doing that on purpose? Was that something that you feel strongly about, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. I did. I really wanted to show the different kinds of ways that, young black boys, especially those who grew up working class in a state and on estates, try to express their masculinity outside of, violence and aggression and those kind of cliches that we see so often slapped onto black men.
Mm.
Although of course there is aspects of violence in the book, but I wanted to show it through kind of the tenderer moments,
Yeah.
not even how Kay would relate to his boys or anything like that, but how he would relate to his younger brother, how he would relate to his mother, how he would relate to an aunt, not someone who's actually his auntie, but an older African woman who he sees,
Okay.
How he relates to her. Um, and how that masculinity can have soft edges sometimes. So, for example, I write about Kay helping, an older Ghanaian woman with her luggage.
Yeah.
Him trying to obviously assert his masculinity, but at the same time, he feels a tenderness towards her because because of the kind of cultural respect that we have, one thing, but also when we tend to see, older people who resemble our mothers, they basically might as well be our mothers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I really like that feeling. So one of the passages that I was looking at, that I wanted to pick out and talk to you about, was the I really get what you mean about tenderness, because the passage I wanted to look at was the one where Kay is looking at a little boy outside a shop. So he's outside a sweet shop and he's waiting for you say, well, the book says, I don't know if that's you or the book, the text says, pretending not to be bothered by his white friends inside spending money, I walk over and give him a £2 coin and remind him to eat whatever he buys before he gets home. My mother wouldn't approve, so I know his mother wouldn't either. Yeah, and it's just, there's just, you say, I fall in love with how grateful everything about him becomes. And it's just this really wonderful moment of connection. And then in the next section, you're talking about trying to connect with your brother in your mother's while your mum's pregnant. Well, sorry, I'm saying you, I mean Kay, sorry. So my mum grabbed my hand so I could feel the kicks, but as I touched her stomach, I knew it was a palm trying to connect with me through the skin, and my bond with my brother touchingly began. So there is that beautiful tenderness in there, and the passage that you read out about eating the chocolate and eating all of it. There's a way that these characters, for me anyway, feel as though they're outside of those really simplistic boundaries, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we talk about masculinity as if to say it's the same in every culture, and it's definitely not. And in writing this, I was obviously trying to capture a masculinity that was specific to West African men, because that's what I'm familiar with, or familiar to, again, like I said, Black working class, people. So in a sense, so when Kay sees, the young boy outside the shop, he can relate because he's been there before. He knows what it's like to have friends who may even be working class. But what tends to happen is that immigrant families are more frugal with their money. They don't believe that their children need money to go and buy sweets, because as we will say the phrase, there's rice at home, there's food in the house. I don't need to give you money to buy food in the street. But obviously that's not the same in every culture. So it would obviously look like, a young working class Black boy has less money than a working class white boy, even though that's usually not the case, because, do you know what I mean? So things like that. So just being able to relate and not want to see somebody go through what you've been through, trying to, this whole kind of ethic of helping other people up, reaching down in any way you can to bring them up. And in a sense, that is an expression of masculinity, because you just kind of feel like, I'm the man, I should be the one to be helping everybody, helping people do this, that, and the other. And of course, that idea can be taken to its logical extreme and become very, very toxic.
Yeah.
Well, it is toxic in its very nature, in my opinion, but it can have soft edges. as well, as I try to portray in the book.
So one of the books that you recommended to us that I've been getting stuck into is The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. And so thank you for recommending that. I've been, anyway, doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter how long it's been on my reading list, actually, but it's good that you've pushed me to read it. So I was thinking about how you, how there's such an exploration of gender in this book, in your book. And I love the section where Kay is dancing with his mum. So his mum beckons him into a dance. And it says, "My uncles become aunts and aunts uncles, bodies representing a language where gender has no use." So something that's beyond this kind of binary of male and female, which I think is really lovely. So I was wondering whether you were giving your reader the chance to think about what traditional gender roles might do to people, whether, how damaging they can be for women and for men.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot more that I wanted to do in that, because, one thing that I know was very, very young was that the kind of gender norms and behaviors that we have, in the West, they're not the same in Ghana. For example, when I went to Ghana, there's men holding hands, crossing the street and stuff like that. There's no connotation to it. It's like, well, this is just my friend. And when you're holding hands, you're walking, talking. Do you see what I'm saying? Things like that. And in a lot of West African languages as well, there are no gendered words. Do you know what I mean? So one of my uncles, when he came to the UK and he'd be talking, he would always call me her or she, or or call my mum him, or because the translation it just isn't there.
I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine a language with no genders in it.
It's just, I mean, this was obviously a while ago, so maybe the language changed and things like that. But
yeah,
I know, absolutely not. Sometimes my mum calls me she, and her. All my friends be like, go talk to her. Like, do you know what I mean? And I wanted to try and get that in the book as well. Just show things are obviously things that we've developed ourselves, and we just don't really need to take them that seriously.
Yeah. Oh, that's really fascinating. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about mental health then. And this is a film. This is a film. This is a theme that you pick up on and explore within the text. Just wondering how far you think writers have got a responsibility for raising awareness of mental health issues at the moment. We hear about a mental health, I don't want to use the word pandemic, actually, epidemic maybe, in young people in particular. Is that something that you were setting out to do when you wrote the book?
Yeah, of course. I wanted to, I guess, kind of speak for the people who were scared to speak. Of course, when I started writing this, like I said, I was writing this for myself. I was giving myself a voice. Therefore, I was not speaking by myself, because I'm not the only person who has borderline personality disorder. So yes, absolutely. One thing that did motivate me a lot as well, actually, when I was writing these things down, is that when I first was, hospitalized because of kind of like severe self-harm, etc. I don't know if he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but they always have somebody in the hospital who they send to you when there's mental health issues. And he's looked at me and he was just kind of shocked when he saw me. And I was kind of looking at him like, why is he so surprised? And he was like, he said to me, he's like, I've been working here for 20 years. I've never seen a Black man come through here with self-harm scars. And I was kind of like, my first thought was, wow, really? And then I thought, well, they're definitely out there. It's just that they're not coming, which means they're not speaking, which means they're hiding it.
Yeah.
So also just thinking, I don't want people to be doing these things and feeling like they can't talk to anybody about it. Like and I'm happy to talk to anybody about it.
Yeah. What I really love, I'm just getting a copy of Safe here now. They're safe. Beautiful. loving the colours. So what I really love about that reminds me is that it goes to those places, but it's still a really hopeful book. And so in your essay in Safe, you write that I realised that my story, all our stories, are about transformation and creation. That's why I'm here talking to you. I grew tired of pretending that the slight feeling of hope I feel isn't enough to drive me forward and away from a self-inflicted death. Yes, I believe hope is in us, and as long as we cling to it, the only direction it can take us is up out of the mess we've allowed to consume us. And I really felt that spirit of what you were saying in the essay, in the text. I think there's a real need for hope, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the time when you're going through a crisis as well, I don't think hope is ever absolutely obsolete. Like, it's absolutely like never there. There's always a little bit of it because we're humans, and we instinctively to life, that clinging to life is hope. But sometimes we just think, we dismiss it, or we just think it's not enough, it's not powerful enough. But it is, if you really just grab it with both hands. I personally feel like it is enough. And absolutely, this is what I wanted to do with the book, especially when I was writing, after I knew it was going to be published and I was finishing the book off and I was writing the latter half of it. I wanted there to be hopeful moments. I wanted there to be moments where people could read and say, you know what, I think Kay's going to get through this. I think it'll be okay. Or they felt like, if only I could talk to him, I think
that's a good point. Yeah, I really felt that I was it's a book where you kind of lean in and listen to someone, and when it's finished you feel as though you want to carry on that conversation and do something to help.
And that's great. I think, if people come away from the book feeling that, that's marvelous, isn't it? I feel like I've achieved something.
Job done. Okay, thank you very much, Derek. We've got a couple of pre-recorded questions for you now, and the first one is it touches on D.H. Lawrence, because when I first read about you, I was reading that it was D.H. Lawrence who started your writing journey, if you like, or reading and writing journey. That's what it says in your publicity anyway. And of course, D.H. Lawrence is a Nottingham boy. So the first question touches on D.H. Lawrence, and it's from James Walker.
D.H. Lawrence was a big influence on Black American poets of the 1940s and 50s.
Oh, I can't
People
hear
such as
I can't hear that either.
Jean Toomer and Langston Hughes.
Okay, well, I am going to translate that for you. So James is talking about the way that Lawrence is a writer who's interested in rebellion and resistance, and how that might link to Black poets in particular who work in this tradition of political poems of protest, whether there are any connections in that kind of spirit.
Yeah, definitely. I think right now the only thing for art to do really is to rebel against something, because it does feel like so many things are going wrong. We're realizing so many things were wrong in the first place. So what the arts can do is really push against these things in the most creative ways possible. I think I was reading today. Who was it? I think it was, sorry, I always talk about him. I was reading about Martin Amis, and he gave an interview where he was talking about he doesn't really like the political books or something like that, winning the Booker and think that, something like that. And I just thought to myself, in a time like this, you really want people to try and write books that literally lean in no direction. You really want to be, indifferent to the times, to what's happening, the world, and it kind of baffled me a little bit. And I just thought to myself, if an artist is really clinging to this idea of being apolitical, just being indifferent to the times because they want to have some sort of longevity that is not of the moment, I think that you're just very self-centered and very, very selfish, and you're not using the tools that you have in order to change what is happening at the moment. Dismantle patriarchy, dismantle racism, help in some way, or speak to the climate crisis that's happening. It's bizarre. It's strange to me. I mean, I don't tell anybody what to write, how to write it, why to write it. I never tell anybody to do that. But I feel like to come out and say that, these protest novels or these political books, what book isn't political? It's not. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, sorry, I just went on a
tangent. Yeah, no, it's all right. Don't get me started on Martin Amis. So, apparently people could hear that question while we couldn't. So I'm not quite. We'll check what happened in the break, and sort that out. But hopefully people caught your response and some of James's question. So let's try then and cue the second question, which is from Kyron Howell, and Kyron is a fashion management student at NTU. So I'll pause momentarily to let that question cue.
Hello, Derek. My question would be, how personally have you combated the stereotypes associated with people of colour in the literature community?
My personal take to combat that is to not write about the things that I know are the preoccupations of people who are outside of the community. So, people who are inside, we just want to hear stories from people who look like us, regular stories, love stories, or stories about this, that, the other. Do you know what I mean? So me writing that reminds me in this particular way, I'm not honing in on, I don't think I even use the word race in that reminds me, because you already know what I'm talking about when I say things or when I describe certain situations. You should already know what I'm talking about. I don't need to hammer it home. And another ways to overcome the stereotype is just not to think about, you shouldn't think about any audience when you're writing anyway, but not think about, okay, I want this book to sell. Me personally, I work in publishing. I know that the majority of people who buy books are white, middle-class women. Not to think, how can I write a book that will speak to them or that they will understand, or, so I try not to explain anything in the book. There's phrases in tree in there that I don't translate. The way to do that is literally just to write. And I know this is difficult because, look, you're a writer and it's very hard. You want to make money, you want to sell books. And in order to do that, you do need to cater and pander to particular audiences and things like that. So I would never turn my nose up at anybody who writes a book that has like a glossary in the back for all of the words that are not in English or anything like that. No, not at all. That's just not not my approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I do it, by writing from the inside, because I am on the inside. Not writing, and without writing from the outside. So I think one I saw this really, really funny tweet. Someone said that writers who are writing for people who are outside of their community and begging for them to understand will write a sentence like, I was talking to my friend and I told him, don't call me bruv, a word that we say to each other, not meaning we're and I just thought that's so true. That's what we do. So I would never write like that.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. So that's bringing our first bit of chat to an end. And we're going to let you have a break now, Derek, and a blue ribboned biscuit or a mint club, whichever you prefer. And then we'll come back to you later because we're going to have our first set from the poet. So please feel free to stay and watch because she's fantastic. Okay, so thank you, Derek, for the end of that section. That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so we are very fortunate to have for you this evening a set from the very wonderful Ioni Smallhorn. So Ioni's a poet working in Nottingham. She has an MA in Creative Writing and Education from Goldsmiths University, and she's also a poetry filmmaker, and she experiments and really enjoys translating her poems into film, which is really interesting. As a writer, she really enjoys that blend of the political and the personal that we've just been touching on, actually. So she's just right to share her work with you this evening. This is an astonishing set, and it's my great pleasure to announce Ioni Smallhorn. Thank you.
So my name's Ioni. Thanks for having me. I hope you enjoy this set that I have for you. Just a selection of poems, old, some new. Okay, so the first one is called Tongues, Hips and Multi-Purpose Machetes. I'm from a mother tongue that refused to forget West Africa. A tongue strong enough to withstand English correction houses, now loose and appropriated by teenagers who rename their house yard. I'm from an island where ladies have inflated hips, globular, oscillating power tools, marinated in African ritual and dancehall. From the fear of Obi women and Aki, from the surname of plantation owners and white Jesus, translating biblical scriptures to Pocomania, revivalism, hailing Rastafari. I'm from sugarcane. From the revolts ignited from the sound of the Ebeng echoing over hilltops. I'm one of 36,000 indentured Indians sharing a dream for a better life, travelling from a depot in Calcutta to work for 1 shilling a day to be charged 2 shillings to eat. I'm from a thumbprint that so innocently signed away my language and my religion. From ganja, chillin pipes, dal and roti. I'm from handed down black and Dutch pots, yam grown in backyards, grated and dried cassava. Handcarts made from broken chairs and emptied polished tins become their wheels. I come from a place where lanterns are filled with kerosene, burnt to bright in country darkness, where huge truck tyres become tiny roundabouts. From pimento and Scotch bonnet encasing meat in pit fires and multi-purpose machetes. I travelled through the floodgate, rebuilt Britain after the war. I'm a Windrush follower, greeted by the hostile saliva of the frightened and unemployed. I'm from my grandma's wage packet that stretched across the Atlantic to feed and clothe an 8-year-old boy who became my dad. I'm from Nana Rachel, who feared her brother would not send for her, so she wore a dress 2 sizes too big to hide the surprise in her belly. I'm the daughter of that surprise. So this one's called Colourblind. I'm not going to explain too much. I'll just let the poem do what it has to do. Yeah. Colourblind. No, I don't see colour. I'll dye my hair magenta pink, buy a mint green car to match the shoes in the sale, but I don't see your colour. I don't see how your hair kinks and spirals outwards. I'll paint burnt ochre on the feature wall of my living room, admire the burgundy leaves of my Calathea plant, but I don't see the sienna hue that covers your whole body. I don't see the deep umber in your eyes, the thickness in your lips, the Jamaica in your twang. No, I don't see colour. I don't see colour. I'll take a selfie in the teal waters of Thailand or Sardinia or Barbados. I'll buy a red, golden, green flag at the festival, taste the sticky yellow of plantain at carnival, but I don't notice the earth in you. I don't see colour. I don't see your colour. I don't see you. In my circle of friends. or at the theatre, or at the pub after the match. I don't see colour. I don't see you in the board meetings, or at the hotels that I stay at, or at the arts and craft market on Sundays, or at my children's birthday parties. I don't see you on the nature walks, or in the advertising for nature walks. I don't see colour. I don't see you. So I suppose this section, these next following poems are about love or lack of love, relationships, I suppose. The first one is Kissy Cats. The bell announces playtime. The schoolyard is a speeding highway of children's laughter, hopscotch, football, tag, you're it! Chloe calls, kissy cats, and all the girls in my class run with anticipation, their hair trailing behind them like kites. I stand and watch. You have to run. Don't you know the rules of this game? Asks a dinner lady. I'm 5 years old, and I know the rules. I know there's not one boy in the whole school that wants to kiss me or any other black girl. Snack. I wonder if he thinks of me while at home with his girlfriend and pet dog, a new rug that contrasts with the contemporary art hung over the dining room table where they entertain friends as a couple. I wonder if he ever thinks about the time he gave me a croggy uphill on his new bike, my nipples protruding my t-shirt, pressing against his back on the summer's evening after work. Where does he keep the memories of me? Does he hold them in place with a fridge magnet? Smile each time he fancies a quick chocolate snack? Or they're hidden in the shoebox under the stairs cupboard, where he keeps things he doesn't know yet how to dispose of. Okay, so this is a relatively new poem. It's called 5 Days in Lockdown. 5 days in lockdown and I start running. Somewhere. The government threatened to ban exercise. People are too free, and this invisible killer is working its way inside the lungs of the elderly and the young. An ice rink in Milton Keynes, refashioned into a mortuary. So my arms pump, hands gripping at air, pavement a conveyor belt, churning out strides, along the ring road, curving with the tram lines, past the factories at Baseford crossings, encircling the parks. I ran once before, 10 years ago, when I was locked down with a boyfriend who tried to kill me, frequently. I decided to live and ran barefoot through the night, claiming a future with each stride. Frightened of falling, I keep my gaze short, my thumping heart, my feet pounding, my breath. 4,954 dead, and we're told to stay at home, but behind these closed doors, some women have an underlying health issue that can kill. With any late return home, or any wrong meal, or any wrong tight t-shirt, or holding eye contact too long, or saying no, their bodies on the front line. Some women have been enduring lockdown under surveillance for years. I remember isolation. Not allowed to take a shower without the door closed, prohibited from leaving the house for any other reason than work, until I was prohibited from going to work, from leaving the house, from leaving the bed, from saying no. I considered running before that barefooted night, but fear of falling, losing my footing, doubting my strength blockaded my feet. But I'm greedy now. I want all the space, eat up all my daily allowance of exercise, my strides wide and ravenous, a predator's bite, 400 more dead. Stopping is not an option. My eyes lift a little higher, hungry, and I think of all the women on the front line every day. Their mind is the only place to run to. It's their personal protective equipment, but it's running low. His words infiltrate, attack until each thought is a clone of his. Their eyes are so infected they start seeing themselves through his. I keep running, knowing this is how I survived last time, one foot in front of another, with nothing but my body and mind, and I lift my eyes to the horizon, realizing I reached the destination when I stepped outside the front door, and I wonder if I react this way each time my liberty is infringed. I wonder if I'll start running in any direction until my body burns. I wonder if I'll ever stop running.
Mute, Becky, mute.
On mute. Excellent. I've caught the spirit of the age by muting my mic. That's fantastic. So thank you, Ioni, for that absolutely phenomenal set. Such powerful poems and beautifully performed. Thank you so much. So it's time for a break now. Time to put the kettle on and top up your glasses if that's what you're doing. And we're going to see you in another 5 minutes for Derek Owusu, The Return. And we're talking about a passion for reading and writing in that section. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy your break. See you in a minute. everyone, and welcome back to this special evening with Derek Owusu. We're talking to Derek about his fabulous book, That Reminds Me, which is here. I like to carry a copy with me at all times. And we've been discussing that in the first half, and in this half of the evening, we're going to move on to talk a little bit more generally about having a passion for reading and writing. So we've got a set later on in the half from one of our RAP ambassadors, Justina, and we're looking forward as well to another reading from Derek. And just to remind you that there's a chance to put your questions in the chat, and then we can get those to Derek by the end of the second half. So put your questions in if you've got them, and thank you so much for all your wonderful comments that I've just been reviewing during the interval. Thank you very much for that. Keep commenting away. What do they say? Like and share, like and share. Anyway, so let's move on. Welcome back to the very wonderful Derek Owusu. Hiya, Derek.
Hello.
Hi. So we're going to talk about passion, because when you started working with us and the students during RAP, I asked you to put together a book list of things that you thought were interesting and things that might be useful to read, and things that you'd enjoyed reading. I think they call that a list of recommended books, don't they? Just a book list. So one of the things that you said was that writing books and putting them together is the passion of your life. So I don't know if you can remember that. I just wanted to ask you how you came to discover that passion for writing.
So the passion for writing really came, I would say, after I read The Great Gatsby. You know, so I loved reading. The experience was amazing. But then, in terms of writing, I read Gatsby, and I just thought, wow! I just thought it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. You could tell that he took time with it, and you really sat down with this. I've got to get this right. He would read one sentence over and over again. I'm imagining that he did this, and it was and I just loved the kind of feeling in the prose. Before that, for novels as, okay, somebody just writes a book, they send the first draft off, runs through the presses and it gets published. That's how I saw it. But with The Great Gatsby, when I read that, I could see the work that was really going into it. That's not, obviously, that's not to say that other writers were not working. Of course they were. But I'm just saying it was just very apparent to me when I read that book, that F. Scott Fitzgerald, put in work. And I just thought, wow, I would love to do that. So I started kind of doing that with my essays in exercise science, which obviously had nothing to do with literature. I started writing them in a way that was, I guess I was kind of practicing for writing, fiction. And my lecturers would tell me, like, Derek, this is sports science. You have to write scientifically. You can't write narrative when you're writing a scientific paper. It just doesn't work. It needs to be objective. I never listened to that. I just carried on writing the way I was writing. Thank God I graduated, because I just kept writing the way I wanted to write. But then after that, I just became really fascinated with words and writing and syntax and how we can subvert syntax and, just really getting the right rhythm of a sentence. So that's what really concerns me when I'm writing. I really just think about the rhythm of the sentence. How does it feel? It's going to sound weird. How does it taste? What does it look like? Do you know what I mean? On the page, these kind of things really start to concern me. So writers like Jose Saramago, who is literally probably just the most stylistic writer that I've ever read, and I'm reading a translation of his book. So I mean, imagine what it's like in Portuguese. It must be mind blowing, because it already is mind blowing in the translation. So that's when I started thinking, wow, I really want to be able to do this, and also because my favorite kind of rappers are rappers that rap in a way that one 16-bar verse is connected all the way. There's no kind of like breaks. There's no breaths. I love that kind of writing, you know. Another one of my favorite writers, who I don't talk about enough, is a writer called Anthony Powell. You know, they kind of say that he's the watered down version of Marcel Proust. Yeah, I don't agree with that.
That sounds fun.
He's an amazing prose stylist. I think he's incredible the way he writes. You know, it's really good. Obviously, the subject matters. Now that I'm older and I've read a lot more, his subject matters. I roll my eyes a little bit more. His subject matters, kind of like, you know, the white middle class male struggles and stuff like that. But he's an incredible writer. So those are the kind of people that I read, and I just thought, wow, I really want to be able to do that. I wish I could do that. I want to learn to do that.
So so what you're saying is sort of pointing to that connection between reading and writing, and learning your craft by reading other people's words. Yeah, if you were going to say, right, you know, for a new writer who's just exploring using different words in a different way as a beginner, if you like, from the beginning, what kind of books would you recommend to them as great examples?
I'd recommend 4 books. I'd recommend either The Old Man in the Sea, or Farewell to Arms by Hemingway, one of those 2 books. The Double by Jose Saramago. The Fool by Albert Camus, and A Dance to the Music of Time by Anthony Powell. I think that those, because the styles are so different. So of course Hemingway's style is very stripped back of everything. Camus' style is very stripped back, but has this philosophical push when it comes to writing. So it's different. Saramago is all style, but so much substance as well. And then Anthony Powell is quite stylistic, not much substance, in my opinion. Although I still...
All right, that's really interesting. But first of all, just to pick up on what you said about, because I noticed that last week when you came to the rap, when you gave us a masterclass last week, or an Owusu class as we're now calling it, that you said somebody's words really taste nice in your mouth. I really get it, because there's a way that you know, it has to be attractive as an experience almost. Do you know does that make sense?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's weird that, you know, you say words have taste, and obviously there's particular writers, like for example Nabokov, who says that he has synesthesia. He didn't name it at the time, but what he was describing was synesthesia, where words have colors and things have taste, and those kind of things where your senses are really mixed up. And although I definitely don't have that, I'm not claiming to have that, but certain books. So for a long time, Anna Karenina, it just tasted like purple to me. I had never read it before, but anytime I would just see purple for some strange reason. I have no idea why. Books just come to me like that, like they just kind of have to say. And the same with words. So I love saying verisimilitude. I love that word because it's just so nice on the tongue. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, other shorter words. It just feels good to say them. And I feel like, sorry, go on.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. There's something about when you're doing your writing, when people are writing, then is there something about trying that out and reading their work out loud and seeing how it tastes to them?
Absolutely. You know, when I was studying exercise science, my lecturer said to us, any essay you write, read it out loud before you submit it. He was asking us to write scientific papers, so it was going to sound clunky. It was supposed to sound clunky, sorry. But because he's a novelist himself, and he's the one obviously who got me into literature, he was thinking like that the words should work well together. One word after the other should flow. They should connect in the right kind of way. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. You should read it out loud. As painful as it is, it's so painful to read your own work out loud. But I would say, yeah, definitely do it.
I guess it's that thing, isn't it, that if you can't listen to yourself, how do you expect anybody else to be able to listen to you? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. It's funny though, because I can't listen to myself on podcasts, but I'm hoping other people will listen to me.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's hard hearing your own voice. Really hard. I was going to ask you about precision, actually. So what you just said makes a lot of sense, because the writers that you've picked up and recommended, they're very precise. So Hemingway, his sentences are just really tight, aren't they? You know, the focus on, you know, if there's a fish hook in a Hemingway sentence, it's going to be a very remarkable, well observed and significant fish hook. You know, so I get that. And in your book as well, I really love the way that you name food and washing powder and cloth cutters and hair products, and there's that same kind of like materiality, or you know, the kind of way that you absorb everything and then present it on the page at the same time as being really lyrical and poetic. It's quite an achievement. And I was just wondering about this connection between being precise and being planned and being intuitive. And you spoke about it a little bit last week in the masterclass, the way that you know, the way that those things work together as a writer. I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So just, you know, kind of being an intuitive writer. So I think one thing that's important, and I was thinking about this today, is that, you know, when you do kind of like an interview or anything like that, you know, a friend I was talking to, he said that he finds it really frustrating when the interviewer asks him to break down his work really critically. Because he was like, I'm an intuitive writer. And this is why I just thought, yes, of course you are. I am too. You know, sometimes you just do things, you employ different things that you understand subconsciously, but you wouldn't be able to explain them. And obviously I use the example that I just know where I should put a comma without thinking about the sentence or anything like that. I just feel like I know where that should go, or I know where to put an M dash, or I know where to put a semicolon. I still struggle with that one a little bit, actually. But it's kind of instinctual as well. Like, for example, you write a sentence, you read it back again, and something jars, you're just like, something not quite right about this word. You don't know what it is, but your instinct is telling you, change that word, take it out, get rid of it, or turn it into something else. And then there's obviously other writers who plan everything. Okay, this is what I want this sentence to read in this particular way. I want it to say this and get this across. I want the plot to be like this will happen, blah, blah, blah. Like, for example, like I said, John Irving writes the last sentence first of all of his novels, and then he can write them. And he says he already knows everything that's going to happen in the novel. Where there's other writers who have no idea what's going to happen. They just instinctively write till they get to about 400 pages and say, okay, I'm finished now. They don't know how it's going to end. You know, it's just like Wonder Boys by Michael Chabon, where the problem is not starting the novel, is actually being able to finish it. He's an intuitive writer. Not Chabon, he's main character. So that, yeah, sorry, that's what I meant by that. And but the perfect blend is the two. Being able to, okay, you've got an idea in your mind of what you want to achieve. It's not fully formalized, it's not fully fleshed out, but you can start writing, and then you get to the end and you're like, okay, I know this is where this is supposed to end. You just don't keep going like flourishing, because then you just end up writing loads of text that your editor's going to tell you to cut out, and you're going to feel really bad because you're like, that was the greatest 200 pages I've ever written in my life. Your editor tells you that you can't make the novel. So yeah, sorry, a blend between the two things, being intuitive and very technical, is the perfect thing, because you can always tell when a writer's being technical, like really just, you can tell that, okay, there's, you know, I love Invisible Man. I think Invisible Man is an amazing novel. But it's very, very obvious that Ralph Ellison is a technical writer. It's almost like you can see the seams in the chapters, trying to put it all for it to all, you know, fit together. You can see them. But then you've got James Baldwin, who for me feels like an intuitive writer. Well, at least with Go Tell on the Mountain, feels like an intuitive writer. He's writing, everything is just coming out in a flurry. Actually, I'm going to use those two. Yeah, I think that's a good example. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. I think you're right. I think there's a balance, isn't there, of kind of not editing yourself out of existence, but being taking that step back and just appraising what you've written as well. Yeah, really fascinating. Thank you very much. Thank you for those writing tips. That should be your next project, Writing Tips by Derek Owusu. Okay, so we're going to hear now, we've got another pre-recorded set for you, and I'm very excited by this because one of our RAP ambassadors and participants is Justina Chuglewska. So Justina started writing in October when she joined the RAP sessions. She is a student in NTU's business school, and she hasn't done any creative writing since she was at school. So this is a fantastic chance to hear 3 of her poems that she's written during the programme. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Justina Chuglewska.
Hello everyone, my name is Justina Chuglewska and I will be reciting 3 poems which I have written during rap workshops. The first one is called Maps of the Future. What does it tell you about human nature when you consider atlases of the past? Hand-drawn, meticulously measured, fantastically depicted, carefully put together. What does it tell you about human spirit, broken in the shadows of technology? Maps don't look like that anymore. They don't look like art. When possibilities of digital are so much simpler, what does it tell you? Ancient art now forgotten, put to bed and euthanized. We discard those pages upon which many spirits have been broken. Roads painted red with blood and sweat are meaningless. The second poem is called The People Will. The people will, and it will be the norm, to spend our lives in front of a screen because technology is the future and your job will be taken by a robot. Losing touch with good values, with your grandfathers and your God and your purpose on this earth will be difficult to find amongst the rubble. The people will not stand for life, for freedom, even though an apple a day always carried poison and brought Snow White's death closer. The people will bite and crunch, pretending it's tasty, but it is rotten in its core. The people will close borders. Between sanity and madness, the lines are thin and lies are thick. To keep lovers apart, Juliet might be better off without Romeo. Heartbreak is such an ordeal. The last poem is called Autumn. A spice, but not spicy. Cinnamon leaves and nutmeg conkers falling, tuck, tuck, tuck. Sounds of crunching, crackling, but not fire. Rusted leaves left to rot, left too long, left too heavy for the smooth, soft air to move, to push, to revive, while the sun is still given heat, but not like summer, like a fox attacking from behind, but not viciously, gently, discreetly, unexpectedly, giving life. Thank you so much for listening.
She's brilliant, isn't she?
Yeah, that was dope. That was real dope.
Yeah, I love that line, like a fox attacking from behind. It's such a good description of autumn. No, so good, so good. Thank you very much, Justina. That was brilliant. So I just wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions and before I invite you to read again. So first of all, you've been working with us over the course of the term. You've given us your book recommendations. You have been over to our currently reading book group, and you did your Owusu class last week and this event. So I just wondered how you feel about having worked with us. How's it been for you, Derek?
It's been good. It's been really fun, actually. Well, not actually, but it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm glad to be kind of like I guess in a sense the ambassador for the rap program, which has been great. It's really been great. I'd love to come back and do something again. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. Where you say ambassador, do you mean like in the Ferrero Rocher advert?
I haven't seen the advert. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I think you have to be of an age. I'll send you a Ferrero Rocher so you know what I'm on about. I just wondered whether you would be able to share with us what's next. What's next in the Derek Owusu plan?
Well, one thing I can't talk about yet, which is annoying. I wish I could, but I can't. But I am just currently now really thoroughly editing a poetry collection that I've just finished. That I'm really happy about, actually. It's probably the first time I've ever written something and been happy about it. Which probably means it's absolutely terrible, but I hope it's not terrible. That's what I'm doing. I'm writing a lot, you know. There's I think obviously because the lockdown, you know, you're at home and it's just not much else to do. I'm writing a lot, and I'm reading a lot of poetry at the moment as well. Reading a lot of novels, watching a lot of Netflix, which is a great source for inspiration as well. You know, that's great. Even BritBox, I literally just finished watching The Royal Family, all of the seasons again in the Christmas specials, and it's just brilliant. It's brilliant writing. It's so good, man.
I love that Christmas special. I love that Christmas special when they're in the bathroom together and she's talking to her dad. So nice.
It's great. And the Queen of Sheba, I think that's probably the best thing they've done. I really, really, really love that. Sorry, talking about the Royal Family, but it happens. It's really, really good. It's amazing writing, amazing TV. Yeah. It's probably the beginning of Gogglebox, I would say the Royal Family was.
Yeah, definitely. Carolina Hearn, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And on that note of poetry, I was going to ask if you would mind sharing some of your poems with us, Derek. How does that feel?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
I'm happy to share something I've actually never shared before.
Wow.
So this is a poem that I wrote after I wanted to challenge myself, because I kind of thought, that reminds me of semi-autobiographical, and I thought to myself, can I write something just purely based on, my imagination? So I wrote this. This is about, me fictionalizing a black pilot called Johnny Smythe, who's from Sierra Leone, and I wrote this, I guess, for him. Frank, open up. Frame of my dreams as I minced the mattress with REM sweat. I was the guide to violence, no orders ignored, but without the carrying out of dust settling towns. Frank, open up. Cold hands covering my depthless dimples raised my cheeks to ask me to say something. Frank, open up. My familiarity with the propeller soaked white noise into the clouds before it floated through, descending, feeling like rising ghosts were trying to raise us with their ascension, telling us stay high, their windy hand on our chests, and then I was at the Lancaster drifting downwards, parachuting without fear of capture. Frank, open up. But the mountains preserve a sound without the aluminium birds they sing from, and without warning, the horizon closes its eye, fearful of a death in its skies. Frank, open up. Many see no fear until seconds before they butt heads with a bullet. The eye's deceit taught me to listen, and so to lean over and look down isn't much of a feat but an escape to stand for judgment. Then, below, Something turns and a shot rings through the ether, instruments silenced. So when our boys at base raise their homesick eyes, we'll be amongst those who return. Frank, open up. Narrow shoulders with too much space brush me as they pass, a whisper asking me to move on. For others, wider, a barge, bellow, forced my torso to move, slightly, but my head remained stiff. Eyeline impaling the notice board, a board exposing the confident lies I speak in my disbelief. I turned towards the mess with my mouth still open, uncouth for someone of my Creole group, Freetown troops, the ones I truly fight for. The snap of a salute straightens me up, like the gesture was my own, and I realize in a second I've gone through a Darwinian change. I look down at my hand and notice the precision with which I've taken hold of the truth that I was now an officer. I close my mouth, lips refusing to touch, which was my custom, and tilt my hat to a slant. I change course and find myself under an empty sky, for 5 minutes at least, time enough to remember that what peace feels like. Then I'm watching contrails frighten the ether to pale, pilots returning, me counting the Lancaster bombers and recalling wartime. I recognize their faces, muted, toothbrush beneath their septum, hands remaining unshaken, still disbelieving the race, a look I'd given my own standing before. I was forced out of the barn, my body bleeding heavily from the crash, but luckily, no, divinely, none of the bullets ricocheting off the trees I fell through which I was saved, had touched me. I couldn't take my eyes off their swastikas, each of us fascinated by the other, but I pulled myself out of my Olympic recalling when their German increased in incredulity after noticing that I was an officer as well as an African. An aberration of adaptation, or their propaganda was wrong, the latter being more unbelievable than I was. No longer a monkey for drums, my rank now turned me into a silverback stroking a Lee Enfield. I was taken, a black man thought to be fighting a white man's war, but what I saw those years back, as I studied his struggle, a book that before I would let it reach fruition, for my kings and continent, I would bomb Germany to rubble. The guards left us with our freedom, but days later the Soviets advanced and found beds with bodies still trying to sleep off the second-hand conflict of a godless watch. Some soldiers are enchanted by a spectacle, the short flight from mortality, but others are repulsed, seeing miracles but feeling the bolt action in palms that prayers were used for. The combined breaths and roars of rapture from the Russians filled our camp with a miasma of vodka. I took a drink myself, to good health, but declined after the first as I thought a tall black drunk would compromise my position. I felt days on my soles, but finally we rested. Our walk had brought us closer to hearing the kings, we thought, but the small town we decided to loot was not far from our camp. I recognized the smell of fresh dough I used to wrap my tongue around each morning, lying in bed with arms folded on my chest, wondering which nationality would arrive at our European prison next, our lives, our commonwealth. I held back from pillaging, this unexpected gift of freedom enough to say what stained its pores at my center. The looting turned buildings to monuments, props for posterity, but glass didn't shatter on first impact from bullets or bricks, just a ripple making its way through the substance, buying time before a second barrage would split it into fragments. I watched as grainful soldiers sprayed alcohol into faces of civilians. And while the enormity of their actions remained in line with what they had enlisted to do, I listened, happy to contradict my initial anger, rage, for the soft sniffs of the young woman relieved of her belongings. I watched her with grief. They couldn't hear my pleas, a spectacle now a spectre, spectator to this inhumanity. She had brown eyes with black hair, hands which knew only spiritual work, and I recognized her as having the same quirk, the same idiosyncrasies as the missionaries who first implored me to come over and fight, the one who was so kind to the children. So at the risk of being threatened, for her, I had to do what was right. I had to pull my gloves inside out and turn around to win this new fight, this war. The deceit of defeat by an entire people was rendered obsolete As I saw beside the wicked and the strong, there was the innocent and the weak. Thank you. Never read that before.
How did that feel in your mouth?
That felt all right, actually. That felt decent still, yeah.
I like the sound of it. I like spectacle inspector. Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah, it sounded fantastic. I really look forward to reading that, Derek. Thank you.
No worries, thank you.
We've got a couple of questions to finish off with from our fantastic audience. Now, Sandeep Mahal, who's the director of Nottingham City of Literature, was asking about your next book. So you were going to have a project about teaching your brother to read. How are you getting on with that one?
That book's been put on hold for a while, aka indefinitely at the moment. Just because, you know, of the pandemic, you know, my brother was made redundant, and the last thing he wanted to do was talk to me about literature, you know. So we're going to pick it back up when he's in a better place.
Yeah.
And see
I can tell you, Derek. So the idea was that you were going to pay him, how much was it, £50?
Yeah, I was going to pay him £50 per book, which we up to £100 per book because he got a job and £50 wasn't enough anymore.
Well, I'm still bribing my son. So yeah, it was FIFA 21 that was the last book that I had to bribe him with. Anyway, he won't thank me for telling you that actually, but bribery works, definitely. So I've got some questions for you. First of all, then, from Diana Ebb, how's your experience been with Stormzy's murky books?
Oh, it's been great. We've been really supportive. You know, Stormzy's been supportive. I met him as well. I remember waking up one morning to a WhatsApp from him, and he was like, "It's Mike." I was like, "Who's Mike?" He was like, "It's Stormzy." I was like, "Oh my God, like, why?" He's messaging me like just to talk about the book and stuff, which was amazing. And the editors and the publicity, you know, it's been such a good experience. Very, very smooth. They respond to my emails, which is great. But no, it's been a good experience.
So you submitted your manuscript. It's like an open call, isn't it? If people are interested in doing it, what would they need to do?
So I never really submitted like that. It was my process was different, but they take, I think they're probably one of a few publishers who literally take unsolicited manuscripts. You don't need an agent to submit to Murky Books. You can just submit to them. So once you feel like the manuscript is polished enough, you've done all you can, you've left it, come back to it, and all those kind of things, then you can literally just submit it to them, and they will read it.
Fantastic, so exciting. Have you got Stormzy's? Have you still got it then? Have you still got Stormzy's phone number on your phone?
I mean, I saved it as soon as I saw it. I definitely.
That's really good. Yeah, the next question was from Menashe, who said, "Are you religious, Derek?" Pick that up in your book. Are you religious, or is that something that you've moved on from?
No, I don't think that I can ever move on from religion. I think, or from Christianity specifically. I think that because I was raised going to church, it's going to be there, whether that's indoctrination or just kind of spiritual connection with a particular ideology. I don't know, but to say that I'm not religious would be a lie. I can never say that. But I don't currently go to church or anything like that. Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's a back and forth. I always see religion and spirituality as a back and forth. It's never fixed. We always have doubts. We always have conflict, and we always question, and that's the essence of it. But there's always faith involved in everything human. I think there isn't anything that's not taken on faith, even science. Although they pretend that it's not the same kind of faith as religious faith, but I think they're lying to themselves.
Yeah, you have to make a leap at some point, don't you, with science, even with science.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose it comes back to that sense of hope that we were talking about in the first part of this evening. You know, and I can hear your church going in your writing, in the rhythms of your writing, the way that those kind of psalms and hymns and so on kind of seep into your consciousness.
Yeah, of course. You know, especially when I was writing. I guess, I mean, when I was writing about church experiences in the book, or writing about Kay's mother being really, you know, Christian, Pentecostal, you know, and just having, as soon as I think about church, Pentecostal church, I can hear the music, you know, because the praise and worship is always the most intense part of the service. So it was always there in the back of my mind as well. And it definitely influenced the way that I was writing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Well, I think I have had a wonderful evening. I don't know about anybody else. I can't speak for them, but it's been fantastic to talk to you and to find out more about your process and your fantastic book recommendations, and just sit down next to you, I suppose, and just enjoy sitting with you, Derek. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So I'll be in touch. Thank you very much for joining us, Derek. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was a real treat. I hope you found it a treat as well. Just to say that Alex Wheatle, who has an essay in Derek's book Space, is in conversation next week at Bonington Gallery as part of our Bonington Gallery Formations programme. So if you'd like to find out more about Alex, then just go on the website and sign yourself up for that event. And that's on the 9th of December, and that's the plug over. So I have to say thank you very much to everyone behind the scenes this evening, all the technical people, all the people in the culture team who have helped me. Well, we've all helped each other put this together, all of the Nottingham Trent events team. Thank you very much to all of them. Thank you very much to all of you for coming along this evening and sharing some time with myself and with Derek. And most of all, thank you to the most brilliant Derek Owusu. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.